So coming into this chapter, we're getting confirmation that Shoto and Uraraka have defeated Dabi and Toga. Shoto we know for sure did. Uraraka, on the other hand, her fight ended a little differently, but we're not getting confirmation on if they're alive or dead. I mean, if they're alive, they're definitely in custody. And the way that they left off, it really could be either or. But soon we will get confirmation. There's definitely a reason Horikoshi hasn't been talking about it. But now that Toga has been defeated / died, or / incapacitated or whatever, her twice clones from the Sad Girls Parade are now dissipating, and because of that, the falling UA can float again because they don't have to keep up their weight any longer, because it's become lighter without all the twices there. But now we're coming back to Izuku going against Shigaraki. Like, we're back. We're finally returning to Izuku, and I guess this is like the beginning of the end. Like, this sequence is going to ride us into the end of the series, I suppose, right? Because everything else has already been established and finished at this point. The only thing left is really for Bakugo to come back, which I'm going to talk about later, but that will coincide with this. So it's looking like Horikoshi's estimate that he made last year might be kind of accurate, because it seems like we might have a December or January finish at this point. Just taking a guess. Could be longer than that. But we're seeing Izuku hold off Shigaraki, which he's been doing for a long time now. Like the last, 15 chapters or something maybe. Because, if Shigaraki just touches anything, it'll explode. And we're also seeing how powerful Izuku is right now and just how cool he looks. Like, he looks awesome in this panel, but he's been holding Shigaraki with his black chains, which is like the upgraded black whip. And I just wish we got to see more of Izuku. Like, we did get those chapters earlier where Izuku was fighting against All For One in Shigaraki's body, and that was incredible. Some of the best stuff in the series, easily. Like Izuku using all 7 of his quirks in unison, synergistically, incredible stuff, but I just wish we got more of it. So hopefully this final battle will deliver, and we'll get to see Izuku go all out. Like, no holding back, everything that he is fully capable of, all the Deus Ex stuff, just everything. Horikoshi should just go all out since it is ending. Why not? But we're coming to them because now All For One is within range to use his Gloop Warp on Shigaraki, because he's been fighting All Might and he's pretty much successfully defeated him. Like, he's destroyed 95% of his support gear, and he's, vulnerable to nearly any attack killing him at this point. And All For One says, now's the time to fulfill his goal, which is getting to Shigaraki, merging their quirk factors, and taking over his body, because, his body is reinforced to be able to hold the full power of All For One, and he has enough hatred to be able to take One For All from Izuku. However, that's definitely not going to happen. It's probably going to be the reverse, and I'll talk about that at the end. But Shigaraki straight up just denies All For One trying to warp him by just shutting his mouth, which is hilarious. And it turns out that Shigaraki's mind is just too strong now, and it's like even overcoming All For One's. And it could go into All For One becoming younger, from Rewind maybe. Then All For One's like, all right, well, I guess I got to go there in person and just, do it manually. And he grabs All Might and starts flying over there. He's grabbing All Might for Izuku, of course, but also, I guess, to just kill him in front of everyone, because he says, I'll show them how pathetic you look right now, etc. But also, it looks like he's still glowing. And we talked about this before, like, when All For One regressed in age again, after he was healing against All Might, he started glowing, and I was questioning, like, so why is he glowing? Because obviously the biggest example of this is the glowing baby from the first chapter, the first person to ever have a quirk. And I thought, like, wait, does this mean that he's the glowing baby, or, what's going on with that? Because the glowing baby was born in China, and I'm pretty sure All For One is Japanese, right? And then I was talking to somebody, and they said, what if All For One just took the glowing baby's quirk? Or maybe it was a glowing man by the time All For One took it, but he just took that quirk because, it was like the first quirk, so why not? And I guess it's kind of like a trophy or whatever. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's cool. And if that is the case, and Horikoshi just never explains it, and it's kind of just like an Easter egg for the hardcores, I think that would be fascinating and really cool. Also, another little funny thing in this sequence is Shigaraki is egging on Izuku as All For One is grabbing All Might and flying him there. Like, clearly Shigaraki is against All For One, but he hates All Might even more, and anything to rattle Izuku even more, who is like crying energy tears at this point. And speaking of that, he's remembering, some great memories with All Might. All Might saying, I'll use this very hand to shape my own fate. Izuku saying, I'll be there changing fate by your side. As well as All Might saying, like, you gotta stop being a crybaby. And Izuku trying to fight back the tears. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Hofsco. Hofsco strives to make the best and reliable electric bikes for bike lovers, helping all cyclists live an active, healthy, and sustainable lifestyle. Their goal is to build a long-lasting brand, get more people on bikes to experience the e-bike smile, and begin an incredible adventure journey. And they're not lying about the e-bike smile, because guys, this is by far one of the best things I've ever received in my life, because this thing is truly incredible and has completely changed my life for the better. Now, I live in the inner city, and since I became a content creator full-time a couple years ago, I no longer saw the need for a car, and I got rid of it, which was like a huge burden off my shoulders. I didn't have to worry about parking, maintenance, gas, insurance. I don't think I've driven a car in like the last 3 years, and I was kind of just taking rideshare apps to get to long distances, and aside from that, I'd of course be walking everywhere in between. But I don't have to worry about that ever again now that I have the Hofsco Hov City step-through cruiser electric bike. Now, of course, this thing looks incredibly aesthetic. Just taking this out for a 15-minute stroll today, I had people constantly glancing at it. It's a class 2, but can be class 3 unlocked via the Hofsco app, which is super simple to use. It has a Shimano 7-speed shifter, and speaking of the motor, it has a 500-watt brushless gear hub motor and goes up to speeds of 28 miles per hour. This thing is incredibly fast, and you can just tap on the throttle and you're pretty much cruising. You don't even have to pedal. Like, check this out. It was so much fun doing this. It also has a 60-mile range battery, along with a flashlight and super powerful brakes for when you really need them. And since I got my Hofsco bike a few months ago, my girlfriend has also gotten one, and it just made her life so much easier. Driving and parking isn't the easiest in our city, especially as a college student, so now she doesn't really have to worry about that stuff. Also, now that we both have bikes, we can go on rides together, which is like a fun new way to get a workout since we didn't have these before. So guys, if you're interested in completely changing your lives for the better and just adding pure fun to your life, check out my link in the description, because Hofsco is currently running its end of summer sale where you can save up to $1,000. That's right, $1,000. So check the link in the description, guys, because this sale won't last long. Thanks. But then suddenly the vestige ghost of All Might inside of Izuku, inside of the quirk factor of One for All, just disappears. And Izuku's like screaming out, All Might, like he died or something, because that's what that insinuates, right? And it seems like Izuku is reacting to this in the future, or what we're seeing is happening in the future, because we're coming to All Might wrapping himself around All for One, as he was being carried. So I guess what we're seeing here with All Might is happening in the present, and Izuku was reacting in the future, because All Might starts to glow like there's about to be an explosion or something, and then All for One remembers Nana's final moments. And we're seeing the exact same moment from the All Might Rising manga / OVA, back when All for One was in his prime. And I always wondered what his quirks were at this point. Like, what's he using to make the environment look all Tetsuo-esque like this? And I guess it's just some kind of like organic manipulation quirk or something. I don't know. I mean, it looks like the quirk singularity flesh stuff that Shigaraki has, the way that Yujiko modified his body so that he was capable of using All for One's full power. But in this instance, All for One is like manipulating the environment with it instead of his own body. So I don't know what this is, but it's so cool nonetheless. But he's wondering, like, why am I remembering Nana's final moments? Because she died a pathetic death. And then he remembered, what she said as she died. And she said, All Might will be the one to defeat you, because Toshinori, which is All Might's real name, is even crazier than you, which is very true if you really think about it. All Might is definitely a crazy person, but the good kind, I guess. And All Might says, if you die again, you rewind back to a kindergartner, right? And All for One's like, he's going to blow himself up, and then in the last panel, we see like an explosion. So I guess that's what happens here. All Might still had one last support item left, and it was on his arm, and it was the gauntlet, which I suppose is meant to represent Bakugo, because of all All Might's other support items those were from the students of Class 1A. And he pretty much went through everyone except Bakugo, of course. And now the final one is Bakugo's Explosion Gauntlet. And it looks like he's taking himself out along with All for One. And what makes me think he's taking himself out here is because the Vestige Ghost is disappearing. And the Vestige Ghost was always a weird thing. I guess it was supposed to represent that All Might had like one foot in the grave, or there was just a part of him, or it could have meant that there was just a full part of him left in the quirk factor from when he passed it on to Izuku. And considering that he was still alive, he wasn't like a full-blown ghost the way that the other users of One for All are. It's also interesting that Bakugo interacted with that ghost as Bakugo was dying. So I think that's going to come full circle here, and I think All Might sacrificing himself to put the final nail in All for One's coffin, along with using Bakugo's inspired move here, is going to lead to All Might talking to Bakugo in like the spiritual realm, or the quirk spiritual realm, or whatever. And I guess that will be his final moment with him. It'll kind of be like the end of Fast and Furious 7, where it will be All Might dying as he is passing Bakugo, who is coming back to life. And I guess it'll be kind of like All Might himself being the final thing that brings Bakugo back to life after Edgeshot repairing his heart. I think that would be cool. And then All Might will be a full-blown vestige at that point inside of Izuku, and then we'll see him interact with the other vestiges along with Izuku, of course. And then maybe the full power of One for All is unlocked or something like that, because All Might is like fully in there now or something, you know, maybe. Why not? Because I think that once All for One becomes a kindergartner, you know, after getting severely damaged by this explosion, he'll be so weak that, well, mentally weak, I suppose, not quirk-wise weak, but he won't be able to do anything to Shigaraki, and I think Shigaraki will be the one that absorbs him, and then just absorbs his quirk factor, and then just completely destroys the entity of All for One, like his consciousness, his soul, or whatever. He just destroys it, and he's gone, and now Shigaraki remains with the full power of All for One, and now he faces off against Izuku with the full power of One for All. And then this is like the final battle, and I'm really looking forward to it. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments, and if you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.